The board will now come to order. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderwoman Schweitzer. Alderman Oldenburg. Alderman Cone. Alderman Narayan. Alderman Devoti. Alderwoman Velazquez. Alderwoman Sanye. Alderman Cox Antwi. Alderman Browning. Alderwoman Clark Hubbard. Alderwoman Keys. Alderwoman Tyus. Alderwoman Boyd.
Present.
Alderman Aldridge. President Green.
Present.
Alderman Oldenburg. Alderwoman Keys. Alderwoman Tyus.
Present.
14 present. You have quorum.
A quorum being present, we will be led in an opening reflection by the Executive Director of the Sickle Cell Association, Rosemary Britz, in observation of Sickle Cell Awareness Month.
Good morning. My name is Rosemary Britz, Executive Director of the Sickle Cell Association. September is Sickle Cell Awareness Month, and I want to provide a few reflections for the St. Louis Board of Aldermen. Every day is Sickle Cell in St. Louis. Individuals and families face the realities of sickle cell disease, a condition that is often invisible to those who don't live with it. Behind every statistic is a child missing school, a parent balancing work and hospital visits, or an adult fighting for fair treatment in the healthcare system. Awareness is not simply about knowing the name of the disease. It is about seeing the humanity of those living with it and committing to equity and compassion. Sickle cell disease has historically been overlooked and underfunded, despite being one of the most inherited blood disorders. Here in St. Louis, we are working to change that story through caregiver retreats, listening sessions with our hospital partners, and the new treatment center at Siteman. But progress requires more than programs. It requires understanding that every St. Louisan deserves the same dignity, the same resources, and the same access to care, no matter their diagnosis. And awareness must move us to action. As we recognize Sickle Cell Awareness Month, let us continue building a city where no family has to navigate this disease alone, where young people are supported in adulthood, and where stigma and disparities no longer define care. With your leadership and with the work of the Sickle Cell Association, we can make the vision real for St. Louis. Thank you.
We will dispense with the regular order of business to take up the courtesy resolution calendar. Alderwoman, you're recognized on the motion to suspend the rules for the purposes of introducing Resolution 100 and 102.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. I move that we suspend the rules for the purposes of introducing Resolutions 100 and 102.
It's been moved by the Alderwoman from the 10th, seconded by the Alderman from the 3rd, that we suspend the rules for the purposes of Resolutions 100 and 102. This is a non-debatable motion. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderwoman Schweitzer. Alderman Oldenburg. Alderman Cone. Alderman Narayan. Alderman Devoti. Alderwoman Velazquez. Alderwoman Sanye. Alderwoman Cox Antwi. Alderman Browning. Alderwoman Clark Hubbard. Alderwoman Keys. Alderwoman Tyus.
Aye.
Alderwoman Boyd,
Aye.
Alderman Aldridge, President Green,
Aye.
Alderwoman Keys. 14 aye votes.
By your vote, you sustain the motion from the Alderwoman from the 10th. Madam Clerk, please place resolutions 100 and 102 at the end of the courtesy resolution calendar.
So noted.
And with that, I would ask the Alderwoman from the 10th to please approach the dais with your honored guests for the presentation of Resolution 100.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. This is what happens when you try to surprise and acknowledge people in the unique way and organizations and work and missions, the unique way that we can down here at the Board of Aldermen. So even though Ms. Britt is not still present to receive this, we are absolutely going to still honor this so that she knows, and all of the sickle cell warriors and champions, not just in the sound of our voice here, but in our city, in our region, in our nation, knows that how befitting that this resolution is Resolution 100. I think we down here at the Board of Aldermen stand 100% behind in advocacy and work recognizing Sickle Cell Awareness Month and the work that it does, and the disparity in the work for sickle cell awareness. So with that, I would ask Madam Clerk if she would read Resolution 100.
Resolution 100, recognizing the Sickle Cell Association during Sickle Cell Awareness Month. Whereas sickle cell disease is the most common inherited blood disorder in the United States, affecting African Americans and other communities of color, causing serious health challenges, including pain crisis, organ damage, and reduced life expectancy. Whereas September is nationally recognized as Sickle Cell Awareness Month, a time to increase public understanding, promote early detection, advance research, and support individuals and families impacted by the disease. Whereas the Sickle Cell Association, headquartered in St. Louis, Missouri, has served as a trusted advocate, educator, and resource for individuals living with sickle cell disease and their caregivers, providing culturally competent outreach, education, and support services. And whereas the Sickle Cell Association has strengthened the St. Louis community through initiatives such as its annual caregiver retreat, hospital partnered listening sessions to amplify patient voices, and collaboration with Washington University and BJC to establish a specialized sickle cell treatment center, improving access to quality care. Whereas the City of St. Louis recognized the compassion, dedication, and leadership of Sickle Cell Association have made a lasting difference in the lives of many residents and contribute to the health and well-being of the region. Now therefore be it resolved by the Board of Aldermen, City of St. Louis, we hereby recognize and commend Sickle Cell Association for its outstanding service to the community, for its leadership in promoting awareness, education, and advocacy, and for its commitment to individuals and families living with sickle cell disease, and join with communities across the nation in observing September as Sickle Cell Awareness Month, and encourage all residents of the City of St. Louis to learn more about sickle cell disease and to support the work of Sickle Cell Association. Be it further resolved that we direct the clerk of this Board of Aldermen to spread a copy of this resolution across the minutes of the proceedings and to prepare a commemorative copy of this resolution to the end that it may be presented to those deemed appropriated by the sponsor. Introduced this 12th day of September 2025 by the Honorable Shamim Clark Hubbard, Alderwoman of the 10th Ward, and the co-sponsor is the Honorable Megan Green, President of the Board.
Thank you again, Madam Clerk, and thank you again to my colleagues, to us for taking this time out, not only to uplift, acknowledge, recognize, thank the Sickle Cell Association and for all the work that they will continue to do, but also use this unique way to uplift and encourage our constituents, our residencies, our networks to do that as well.
Any further discussion? Alderman from the 3rd.
Thank you, Madam President. I would like to make a motion that we make this resolution in bank.
It's been moved by the Alderman from the 3rd, seconded by the Alderman from the 7th, that we make Resolution 100 in bank. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Resolution 100 is now in bank. Is there any further discussion? Any further discussion? Seeing none, if we could please gather on the steps with the resolution so that we can send a picture to the Sickle Cell Awareness Foundation.
Give me time. All the pictures. Do them at one time. Just cycle first.
With that, I would now ask that the Alderwoman from the 8th approach the dais with your honored guests for the presentation of Resolution 77.
Good morning, Madam President, members of the board. Today, I am here to recognize SLATE, the St. Louis Agency on Training and Employment. September 2025 marks the agency's 50th anniversary. And this month, the month of September, also marks National Workforce Development Month. As a premier force in the St. Louis community for workforce development and skills training, SLATE has served our community by supporting youth, dislocated workers, and veterans, and we are grateful for them for being a force in the St. Louis community to help support and sustain our workforce. In a time where challenges are facing our community, like federal workforce reduction and the impact of the tornado, SLATE has greatly supported the impacted St. Louis workforce, and we're grateful to have an agency that has been serving our community for 50 years and hopefully beyond. So today, I'm honored to present Resolution 77, and I would like to ask the clerk to please read Resolution 77.
Resolution 77, celebrating the 50th anniversary of the St. Louis Agency on Training and Employment SLATE, recognizing September 25th as Apprenticeships Month and National Workforce Development Month in St. Louis. Whereas for 50 years, the St. Louis Agency on Training and Employment has served as the city's workforce leader, providing residents with no-cost career coaching, training, and job placement, delivering over 40,000 services to nearly 12,000 people in the last year alone. Whereas SLATE strategically builds talent pipelines for high-demand fields for funding short-term training and apprenticeship programs that rapidly connect job seekers to employment in sectors like healthcare, IT, transportation and logistics, construction, and advanced manufacturing. Whereas demonstrating a commitment to equitable opportunity, SLATE serves all residents, including veterans, at-risk youth, and justice-involved citizens through innovative programs that unlock potential in often overlooked communities. And whereas SLATE helps mid-level professionals, small business owners, and entrepreneurs rebuild careers and secure stable employment following challenges such as the devastating May 2025 tornado. And whereas in September 2025, SLATE will celebrate its 50th anniversary alongside National Workforce Development Month and Apprenticeship Month, hosting an apprenticeship and trade career fair to connect residents with employers and training providers. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Board of Aldermen of the City of St. Louis that we pause in our deliberation to recognize and celebrate the St. Louis Agency on Training and Employment SLATE on its 50th anniversary and its invaluable contribution to the residents and employers of the City of St. Louis. And we further direct the Clerk of the Board of Aldermen to spread a copy of this resolution across the minutes of these proceedings and prepare a commemorative copy of this resolution to the end that it may be presented to SLATE. Introduced this 12th day of September 2025 by the Honorable Jamie Cox Antwi, Alderwoman of the 8th Ward.
Good morning, and thank you for this humbling opportunity. I just want to say that SLATE has done a tremendous job over 50 years trying to get people to work, trying to get people trained up for work. And in this particular day and age, workforce training, these programs are essential to the St. Louis community. It is essential to our economic development, and we humbly ask for your continued support so that we continue providing these programs and services for the next 50 years. I'm so glad to have my deputy director here, who's been here for almost, well, gosh, how many years? Ms. Cassandra Williams, Ms. Tondela Evans. They have been here for over 20 years, which is half the age of the agency, and also Ms. Rebecca Ritter, our one-stop operator. We are a whole team. We are one SLATE, and we thank you, and we thank Alderwoman for her leadership and initiative in recognizing this great agency. Thank you, President Green, and just happy birthday, SLATE, and for another 50 years. We appreciate and we will continue doing the work for the City of St. Louis. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Alderwoman from the 10th.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. I first would like to ask that we move this resolution now 102 in bank.
Second.
It's been moved by the Alderwoman from the 10th, seconded by the Alderwoman from the 11th, that we make Resolution 77 in bank. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Resolution 77 is in bank, which means that every member of the Board of Aldermen has signed on as a co-sponsor of the resolution.
I apologize for saying the wrong number at first. Thank you, Alderwoman Cox Antwi, for bringing this forward. Thank you, Director. I have the honor of serving as your alderperson, so I know the work that you are now getting ready to continue to carry on. I thank you for acknowledging the work that had been done for the 50 years past in this amazing organization. I think one of the hidden gems about SLATE is that so many times when I'm out talking to our city staff, they say they started at SLATE. And so being able to have that, you know, as the testimony and the drive then for them to then stay here and then come back and pull back the times that I've even been to come and talk to your cohorts and your classes there down at SLATE is just really encouraging and inspiring. So thank you for your work. I continue to stand 100% behind you. Please, if there's everything I can do to continue that next 50 years that we're talking about, don't hesitate to call.
Thank you. Alderwoman from the 11th.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. I am a product of SLATE. My very first job at 14 was working one summer with SLATE, and then I worked subsequent summers after that, and I have been working ever since. Because of the things that I learned as a very young person working at SLATE those summers, it taught me a work ethic. It taught me the value of working for what you want and for what you want for your life. I credit SLATE with so many facets of the life that I've been able to live, having worked in government at every level, the city, the state, and the federal level. SLATE in and of itself can truly and is a game changer for so many young people, setting your feet upon the path of understanding the value of work. And I thank you so very much for all of the work of all of the hearts and the hands over the last 50 years that have given so much to our city through SLATE. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Further discussion? Well, on behalf of the Board of Aldermen, I want to thank you for your tireless work and commitment to training the future of St. Louis's workforce. And also from all of us, say happy birthday. Thank you. And if we want to gather on the steps again for one more picture.
Back off, Shane. Yeah, trying out a new look. Trying out a new look. $10.20. You can just cycle out the person in the front. You get all these photos of them.
For her, but I just want you to know when I.
Okay, definitely.
I didn't want to do it.
No, not a surprise.
Alderwoman from the 10th, you are recognized on the motion to adopt the courtesy resolution consent calendar.
Thank you, Madam President. Members of the board, before we do that, I want to make sure that I'm added as a co-sponsor to resolutions 77 through 90, honoring the Urban League Women Leadership Awardees this year. Congratulations to all 13 of you. And also make sure that I'm added as a co-sponsor to resolution 65, honoring an amazing servant leader in this city of St. Louis, Miss Amber Cole.
Madam Clerk, please make note of that.
And with that, I would ask that we adopt the courtesy resolutions.
Hold on. Alderwoman from the 12th.
Yes, Madam President, members of the board, I'd also like to be added to resolution 65, and the other one was 55.
Madam Clerk, please make note of that.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? Right. Alderwoman from the 10th, you're recognized on the motion to adopt the courtesy resolution consent calendar.
Thank you, Madam President. Members of the board, I move that we adopt the courtesy resolution consent calendar.
It's been moved by the Alderwoman from the 10th, seconded by the Alderman from the 3rd, that we adopt the courtesy resolution consent calendar. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify. Is there discussion? Alderwoman from the 11th?
I wanted to be added as a co-sponsor.
We can still add you. We haven't voted yet.
Okay, go ahead.
So which resolutions are you wanting to be added?
Definitely on 80. Well, I actually would like to move that be embanked.
Resolution, I couldn't hear which resolution number.
80.
80. There's been a motion that we make resolution 80 in bank. Is
And
there
81, please.
resolutions 80 and 81 in bank? Is there seconded by the Alderwoman from the 7th? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Alderwoman from the 11th, you're recognized.
You know what? I really think that all of these that are related to the Women's Leadership Award, they should be embanked.
Okay. What resolution numbers?
So let's go right here. Let's go. So we stopped at 81, 82, 83, 84, 85, 86, 87, 88, 89, 90. Oh, this is a good one too. 91. And yes, absolutely, we're going to add number 96. Oh, 97, 98, and 99. Thank you.
Okay, there has been a motion that we make resolution 78 through 99 in bank. Is there any discussion? Or was there a second? There was seconded by the Alderwoman from the 7th, and then there is a hand raised by the Alderwoman from the 12th.
No, I just forgot to add my name to a resolution, so I'm after this motion is done.
Okay. Okay, so let me, I guess the motion is resolution 78 through 99 with the exception of 92, which is on the regular calendar. And that had been seconded by the Alderwoman from the 7th. So is there any more discussion on that? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Aye. Motion carries. Yep. Now I will recognize Alderwoman from the 12th.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. I also would like my name added to resolution number 93 regarding Charles Edward Kirksey Jr., amazing attorney that passed away this past week.
Madam Clerk, please make note of that.
So noted.
Any further discussion, Alderman from the 9th?
Thank you. Not to prolong this further, but could I please be added as a co-sponsor to Resolution 55 and 65?
Madam Clerk, please make note of that.
So noted.
Any further discussion on the courtesy resolution consent calendar? Alderman from the 14th.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Members of the board, I would like to make a motion that we embank Resolution 65.
It's been moved by the Alderman from the 14th, seconded by the Alderman from the 9th, that we embank resolution number 65. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Alderwoman from the 8th. Madam Clerk, if you could please add the Alderwoman from the 8th as a co-sponsor to Resolution 66. Any further discussion? Any further discussion?
Yes.
Alderwoman from the 11th.
Thank you so much once again. I really, really do like resolution number 66, and it should be embanked.
Okay. So would you like to make that motion?
I'd move that we would embank 66, 67. I agree with Alderman of the 3rd Ward, Shane Cone. All of these are worthy of embankment.
So you want to embank every resolution on
unless we got
the
one
courtesy resolution calendar?
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Second.
It's been moved by the Alderwoman from the 11th, seconded by the Alderman from the 14th, that we embank every resolution on the courtesy resolution calendar that has not yet been embanked. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We have embanked all the resolutions. Thank you for our resolution-orama today. All right, with that, we will move on to introduction of honored guests. Alderwoman from the 10th.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. I would like to have as my honored guest Mr. Darrell Granberry, 10th Ward. We hit the jackpot. I would like to reintroduce Mr. Granberry as now the 10th Ward Legislative Assistant. What I'm so excited about with Mr. Granberry is the knowledge and wisdom experience that he brings down here. He's so much smarter than me in so many ways. I look forward to learning from him. And Mr. Granberry, what he adds to that is his character integrity, and I don't take that for granted. So again, I'm looking forward to serve the constituents of the 10th Ward alongside with you. Not to mention, yesterday he celebrated a birthday. So happy birthday, Mr. Granberry. The best is yet to come.
My apologies. We still needed to vote on the, after all of those courtesy resolution changes. We did have it motioned by the Alderwoman from the 10th, seconded by the Alderman from the 3rd, but we never actually voted on it. So I'm going to go back and do that now. So it's been moved by the Alderwoman from the 10th, seconded by the Alderman from the 3rd, that we adopt the courtesy resolution consent calendar. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries. Courtesy resolution calendar has been adopted. We will now go back to introduction of honored guests. Alderman from the 14th.
You go to Matt first. You go somebody else first.
Okay. Alderwoman from the 11th.
Oh, wow. Thank you so much. I was looking for my colleagues to go ahead of me. Over the break, even though I don't feel like I got a break, but over the break, some anniversaries got celebrated. And so Alderwoman Pam Boyd and her husband Nathan have been married for 41 years. And so we definitely want to celebrate that. Additionally, my anniversary with my husband James, we celebrated our 39th anniversary. And we were married 39 years ago on a Thursday at noon, Judge Tillman in civil court. And we went back to work afterwards because we knew that we wanted to buy a house. And that next year, we bought our first house. And so a lot of people, when they talk about marriage, say it's a lot of work. I don't feel like this was work. We truly have had a wonderful life. God blessed us with 4 great men that we have been able to raise right here in North St. Louis. And so I am truly, truly grateful, and happy anniversary, and another 399 more to my husband. Bye-bye.
Any further introduction of honored guests? Alderman from the 5th.
Madam President, I'd like to recognize in the gallery Tina Crouppen. Ms. Crouppen is a longtime member of the Hill community. She has extremely deep roots in the 5th Ward, and it is the work of folks like Tina and her husband that have made the 5th Ward what it is today. So thank you very much, ma'am, and thank you for coming.
Alderman from the 3rd. Alderman from the 14th, he's yielding to you.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. I have several guests today. First, I would like to have as my honored guest the coalition from Not Another Nickel campaign that is here today, as well as I also would love to have as my honored guest Ms. Tina Crouppen from the 5th Ward, but I've had the opportunity to know her now for over 10 years. She has become like a second mom to me. She's just an amazing person. So glad that not only do I know you, but I get to call you a friend. I love you. I love Terry. And the work that you both do for the city is just amazing. So if we can make them feel welcome, please do. As well as I would like to have Ms. Lopez. Ms. Lopez, who is a Bloomberg Fellow that was in the mayor's office and has done extraordinary work over the last several years. She has really modernized City Hall, but not only City Hall, has made some amazing changes to the personnel department. Today is her last day here with us in the city of St. Louis. But she is one of those fellows that even though she hasn't been a permanent city employee, if it wasn't for the work that she's done being a Bloomberg Fellow, some of the modernization that has happened here at City Hall wouldn't have happened. So not only if we can make her feel welcome as my honored guest, and she's also getting a resolution, but let's give her a huge round of applause on her last day for all the great work that she.
Alderman from the 3rd.
Thank you, Madam President. I also have many guests that I'd like to welcome as my honored guests this morning, but Also, would like a point of personal privilege real quick to recognize, and I know they're not here present, but to have the families of the victims of 9/11 as all of our honored guests. 9/11 happened 24 years ago yesterday and transformed our country. Some would say not for the best. Others, say that we came together as a country to unify around the victims and their families as well. But it was a horrible tragedy that happened, and hopefully we can learn from the mistakes that we've made over these years and move forward as a country in unity and peace. But would like to have the families of those victims as our honored guests this morning, and would also ask that we have a moment of silence for those we've lost to violence in our country.
We could please stand and bow our heads for a moment of silence.
Thank you, Madam President. On a lighter note, I would like to have also as my honored guest a new friend of the board, the mustache of the alderman from the 2nd Ward, right over there. A new friend that joined us over the summer recess. So delightful to have him with us today in the presence of us all. Also, I would like to have Mr. David Jackson, Mr. Tom Melichek, Mr. Dave Sweeney, and I believe Mr. Clint McBride is up there as well as my honored guest this morning. Thank you.
Alderwoman from the 10th.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. And to wrap us up, I would like to have as my honored guest our new financial analyst down here at the Board of Aldermen, Ms. Cheryl Campbell, who absolutely brings, again, experience, knowledge, patience, and excitement to be able to do this work, which is very encouraging. Welcome to the board, Ms. Campbell.
Alderwoman from the 6th.
Honored guest Orama here today, too. I would like to introduce as my honored guest the newest executive secretary for the 14th, 4th, and 6th wards, April Rivera. In there. And also our fan in the stands, Clint McBride from Liuna, as our honored guest as well.
Further introduction of honored guests. Seeing none, Alderwoman from the 10th, you are recognized on the approval of the minutes from Friday, July 11th, 2025, and Tuesday, August 26th, 2025.
Thank you, Madam President. Members of the board, I move that we approve the minutes from Friday, July 11th, 2025, and Tuesday, August 26th, 2025.
It's been moved by the Alderwoman from the 10th, seconded by the Alderman from the 9th, that we approve the minutes from Friday, July 11, 2025, and Tuesday, August 26, 2025. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Report of city officials.
We have none.
Does anyone wish to take any bills or resolutions off of any of our informal calendars? Alderman from the 14th.
Thank you, Madam Clerk and members of the board. I wish to take, I gotta get the right number. I was sure
19.
19 off the Perfection informal calendar.
And put it on
the
regular
Perfection regular calendar. Thank you, Madam President.
Madam Clerk, if you could please place Board Bill 19 on the regular Perfection calendar. Alderman from the 9th.
So noted.
Thank you. Could I please take Board Bill 47 off of the informal calendar for third reading and put it on to the third reading consent calendar?
Madam Clerk, if you would please remove Board Bill 47 from the informal calendar and place it on the third reading consent calendar.
So noted.
Alderman from the 3rd, you are recognized on the motion to suspend the rules for the purposes of introducing board bills for first reading. Where is Alderman from the 3rd? Alderman from the 3rd, you're recognized on the motion to suspend the rules for the purpose of introducing Board Bill 66 for.
Thank you, Madam President. I move to suspend the rules for the purposes of introducing Board Bill 60.
It's been moved by the Alderman from the 3rd, seconded by the Alderman from the 14th, that we suspend the rules for the purposes of introducing Board Bill 66. Alderman, you may proceed.
Thank you, Madam President. Suspension of the rules is a non-debatable motion.
But you can't explain what the bill...
For the benefit of my colleagues here, Board Bill 66 is an amendment and update to essentially including the economic scorecard, or AGI, into our development review plans for SLDC.
Right. It's been moved by the Alderman from the 3rd, seconded by the Alderman from the 14th, that we suspend the rules for the purpose of introducing Board Bill 66. This is a non-debatable motion. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderwoman Schweitzer. Aye. Alderman Oldenburg. Aye. Alderman Cone.
Aye.
Alderman Orion. Alderman Devotie. Alderwoman Velazquez. Aye. Alderwoman Sanye. Aye. Alderwoman Cox-Antwi. Alderman Browning. Aye. Alderwoman Clark-Hubbard. Aye. Alderwoman Keys. Alderwoman Tyus. Alderwoman Boyd.
Aye.
Alderman Aldridge.
Aye.
President Green.
Aye.
Alderwoman Tyus.
Aye.
15 aye votes.
By your vote, you sustain the motion for the Alderman from the 3rd. If you could please place Board Bill 66 at the end of the first reading of Board Bills.
So noted.
First reading of Board Bills.
Board Bill 61, sponsored by Alderwoman Schweitzer, pursuant to Ordinance Number 70333, as amended by Ordinance Number 71394, and Ordinance directing the Director of Streets to install speed humps to calm the flow of traffic in the First Ward. Board Bill 62, sponsored by Alderman Devotie, an ordinance regulating the operation of golf carts upon the streets, alleys, and public right-of-way within the City of St. Louis. Board Bill 63, sponsored by Alderwoman Cox-Antwi, an ordinance recommended by the Planning Commission on June 17, 2025, to change the zoning of property as indicated on the district map F, Neighborhood Commercial District, to C, Multiple Family Dwelling District in City Block 1418, so as to include the described parcel of land in City Block 1418 containing an emergency clause. Board Bill 64, sponsored by Alderwoman Clark-Hubbard, an ordinance to repeal certain sections of Chapter 22.28 within the revised code of the City of St. Louis relating to the Zoological Board of Control and remove them from the City Code. Board Bill 65, sponsored by Alderwoman Velazquez, an ordinance to repeal various obsolete boards and commission established under City Ordinance and to remove the City Code. Board Bill 66, sponsored by Alderman Cone and President Green, an ordinance amending Chapter 3.160 of the revised code of the City of St. Louis by adding a new section 3.610.035 to establish definition and criteria for the impact assessment of redevelopment projects as required by Ordinance Number 71620, Section 38E, including the severability clause. That's the extent of the first reading of board bills.
Madam Clerk, if you could please assign Board Bill 66 to HUDs.
So noted.
Reference to Committee of Board Bills.
To the Public Infrastructure and Utility Committee, Board Bill 61. To Public Safety, Board Bill 62. To HUDs, Board Bill 63 and 64. To Legislation and Rules, Board Bill 64 and 65. That's the extent of reference of committee to board bills.
I think it's to HUDs, it's 66, not 64.
I'm sorry. 63 and 66 were referred to HUDs.
Second reading report of standing committees.
The following board bills were reported out of Public Safety with the due pass recommendation. Board Bill 33 as submitted in committee, sponsored by Alderman Devotie, Alderman Orion, and Alderman Oldenburg. An ordinance requested by the Sheriff of the City of St. Louis identifying the powers delegated to the Sheriff while prescribing from the office those activities not specifically provided to the Sheriff by the Missouri Constitution, by Missouri statute, by the City of St. Louis ordinance, or specifically authorized by the Board of Aldermen. The following board bill was reported out of HUD's committee with a due pass recommendation. Board Bill 60, sponsored by Alderwoman Clark-Hubbard, President Green, Alderwoman Velazquez, Alderman Cone, Alderwoman Keys, Alderwoman Schweitzer, Alderwoman Sanye, Alderman Browning, and Alderman Aldridge. An ordinance recommended by the Planning Commission amending Chapter 26 of the Zoning Code defining, permitting, and regulating accessory dwelling units containing a severability and an emergency clause. That's the extent of second reading report of standing committees.
Alderman from the 5th, you're recognized on the motion to suspend the rules for the purposes of moving Board Bill 33 as amended in committee to the regular perfection calendar.
Yes, Madam President, I would move to suspend the rules. Do just that. Move Board Bill 33 as amended to the perfection calendar.
It's been moved by the Alderman from the 5th, seconded by the Alderwoman from the 11th, that we suspend the rules for the purposes of moving Board Bill 33 as amended in committee to the regular perfection calendar. This is a non-debatable motion. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderwoman Schweitzer. Alderman Oldenburg. Alderman Cone. Alderman Narayan. Alderman Devote.
Aye.
Alderwoman Velazquez. Alderwoman Sanye. Alderwoman Cox-Antwi. Alderman Browning. Alderwoman Clark Hubbard. Alderwoman Keys. Alderwoman Tyus. Alderwoman Boyd.
Aye.
Alderman Aldridge.
Aye.
President Green.
Aye.
Alderwoman Tyus.
Aye.
15 aye votes.
By your vote, you sustain the motion from the Alderman from the 5th. Madam Clerk, if you could please place Board Bill 33 as amended in committee at the end of the regular perfection calendar. We have just been informed that Board Bill 39 was not read during the second reading and report of standing committees, so we're going to go back to that portion of the agenda to make sure Board Bill 39 is read. Second reading and report of standing committees. It's 39 as amended in committee.
Board Bill 39 as amended in committee, sponsored by Alderman Aldridge and President Green. An ordinance approving a redevelopment plan dated June 9th, 2025, and blighting study for the 200 South 4th Street in the city of St. Louis. That's the extent of second reading report of standing committees.
Report of special committees.
We have none.
We can dispense with line item 15. Board bills for perfection consent.
We have none.
We can dispense with line item 16. Board bills for perfection.
Board Bill 19, sponsored by Alderman Aldridge, an ordinance approving a petition of an owner of certain real property to establish a community improvement district, establishing the Jefferson Arms Community Improvement District, finding a public purpose for the establishment of the Jefferson Arms Community Improvement District, authorizing the execution of a transportation project agreement between the city and Jefferson Arms Transportation Development District, prescribing the form and details of said agreement, making certain findings with respect thereto, authorizing other related actions in connection with the TDD project, containing an emergency clause and a severability clause.
Alderman from the 14th, you are recognized on Board Bill 19.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. I move to adopt Board Bill 19. Perfect Board Bill 19.
It's been moved by the Alderman from the 14th, seconded by the Alderwoman from the 11th, that we perfect Board Bill 19. Alderman, you may proceed.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. I move that we adopt the floor substitute Board Bill 19.
It's been moved by the Alderman from the 14th, seconded by the Alderwoman from the 7th, that we adopt Board Bill 19 floor substitute. Alderman, you may proceed.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. Before we went down on summer, we actually perfected Board Bill 19 and moved it to the third and final passage calendar. I end up bringing it back and put it on the perfection calendar because we needed to make some changes to this SID, and anytime any changes is made, there has to be a public notice of at least 15 days of those changes. So we couldn't have third read and finally passed it, or we couldn't have perfected it when we moved it back to perfection without giving proper notice. So what the floor substitute does is it actually updates the blight language in Section 8. When doing the legislation, we noticed that the language was outdated blight language and not the most language that the state had passed, and we removed all references from any TDD. So this would just be a SID and not a SID and TDD. I know that was one of the questions that the Alderwoman from the 12th asked, is why are they coupling those? So just to do it clean, they may come back and do a TDD later, but we wanted to just make sure this is just a complete SID and not a SID with a TDD, just to make it clean, and I open up for any questions.
Any further discussion on the floor substitute? Any further discussion on the floor substitute? Seeing none, it's been moved by the Alderman from the 14th, seconded by the Alderwoman from the 7th, that we adopt Board Bill 19 floor substitute. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? List Alderwoman from the 1st as a no. With that, Alderman from the 14th, you're recognized on the motion to perfect Board Bill 19 floor substitute.
I close.
You need to make
I
that.
move to perfect Board Bill 19 floor substitute.
Is there a second? It's been moved by the Alderman from the 14th, seconded by the Alderwoman from the 11th, that we adopt Board Bill 19 floor substitute. Is there any discussion on Board Bill 19 floor substitute? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. By your vote, you have sustained the motion. The Alderman from the 14th.
Board Bill 33, as amended in committee, sponsored by Alderman Devotie, Alderman Ryan, and Alderman Odenberg. An ordinance requested by the Sheriff of the City of St. Louis identifying the powers delegated to the Sheriff while prescribing from the city those activities not specifically provided by the Sheriff, by the Missouri Constitution, by Missouri statute, by City of St. Louis ordinance, or specifically authorized by the Board of Aldermen.
Alderman from the 5th, you're recognized on the perfection of Board Bill 33 as amended in committee.
Madam President, members of the board, I move to perfect Board Bill 33 as amended in committee.
It's been moved by the Alderman from the 5th, seconded by the Alderman from the 9th, that we perfect Board Bill 33 as amended in committee. Alderman, proceed.
This is a Board Bill 33 as amended in committee. Seeks to clarify the duties of the sheriff, as well as has certain reporting requirements with respect to the necessary expenses incurred in the office. And again, I would ask for perfection of Board Bill 33 as amended in committee, and I stand for questions.
Any further discussion? Alderman from the 9th.
Thank you. I want to thank the Alderman from the 5th for his work on this. I know it's not been the easiest bill to get through, but it's definitely one of those things that needed a fine touch, and I think it's been really well handled. To define the duties of the sheriff in the city of St. Louis, since it's so unique when it comes to our city structure versus sheriffs in other counties across the state. And what's more, I think the financial reporting requirements have proven necessary as well. So I thank the Alderman for his work on this and would like to add myself as a co-sponsor.
Madam Clerk, please make note of that. Alderwoman from the 11th.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So my concern is with the financial structure and the reporting of such. So there is a 12-month period where reporting would be required. But if we look at the standard operating procedures of most corporations, and let's be realistic, the City of St. Louis is a business, we're a corporation of sorts. It should be the standard operating procedure as opposed to something that has to be adhered to for a 12-month period. So I would like to ask the sponsor if that's something that he is willing to amend to make it standard as opposed to something with a timeline.
Alderwoman from the 11th, would you like to ask the Alderman from the 5th to yield for questioning?
Thank you so much. Alderman Devote, would you please
The
permit
Alderman
me
from
to
the
ask you some questions regarding this bill?
Alderman from the 5th, would you yield to questioning from the Alderwoman from the 11th?
I will yield to questions.
Alderwoman, you may proceed.
Thank you so much. So, Alderman Devote, as I stated, I am concerned about there being a timeline associated with the reporting of the financials for the Sheriff's Department. And so I really do take issue with it having a timeline. If that's going to be the procedure, it's the procedure from now on. If you got to report, you got to report. I think that if we leave it as something with a timeline for a 12-month period, it becomes, or it looks more disciplinarian than it does, this is the procedure. And so I would like to know if this is something that you could amend to put it in standard operating procedure, that those financials must be reported on a regular monthly basis.
So, Alderwoman from the 11th, you were referring to the sunset clause, I take it, which is Section 4. That is a particular clause, or a clause that was added by amendment in committee. The idea, as I understand it, was to put in motion a certain schedule or a certain direction with respect to the recording. It is not meant to be disciplinary in nature. Rather, it is meant to establish a process or a procedure for this particular office.
Okay. So my question would be, it was amended to be put in, but would you be amenable to changing the bill so that it is the standing operation of that office to provide the financial information on an ongoing basis, as this is taxpayer money? You know, I don't want you to tell me how you're spending my money for 1 year, and then every year after that, you don't have to say nothing to me.
I understand, Alderwoman, and I think what you're asking is, would I be amenable to amendment of this particular board bill to redact or otherwise remove Section 4?
Correct.
And I am.
Thank you so much.
Any further discussion? Alderman from the 14th.
Thank you, Madam President. Will the Alderman from the 5th yield for questioning?
The Alderman from the 5th yield to questioning from the Alderman from the 14th.
I will yield.
Thank you, Alderman. The conversation that you just had with Alderwoman Keys was interesting because I think section of the expiration was an amendment and good negotiation that me and you came together to say, this is how, I think this could be helpful to move the bill forward. I disagreed in committee that we don't have necessarily maybe the role. Madam President, could we get a little order?
Could we please move side conversations out of the gallery?
Thank you, Madam President. I disagree with you in committee. I think it's on record that, do we have a role here in city government to tell state offices what their roles and responsibilities are? While I, want the sheriff and also want to go on record, like I stated in committee, this was legislation that you was working on way before some political grandstanding with our former AG and taking the current sheriff to court. But this was something that you was already working on. You had questioned the sheriff during the budget committee. So I do want to be on record that I know this isn't a political bill for you. This is about trying to find a roadmap forward after all of the recent things that have been in the press. But, Alderman, do you know if any other office reports or have to get a special treatment from the comptroller on reporting or contracts outside of the sheriff office?
Alderman, for the 14th, I am not aware of any other office that has a reporting requirement similar to Section 3. I think that is a fair question, and no, sir, I am not aware of it.
So the other county offices, such as the recorder deeds, the license collector office, what are the other county offices? The sheriff office is one that would be reporting now, but those other county offices outside of the sheriff, as you just stated, does not have those same reporting mechanisms that you're trying to put into this bill. Outside of coming in front of the budget, which every department comes in front of the budget committee, but what your bill would do if they wanted to get, well, on a monthly basis, they would have to provide expenditures on what they're expending to the comptroller office, correct?
Yes, prior to the expenditures, there would need to be a report with respect to both the purported expenditures as well as any contracts to the comptroller. And then after the fact, the sheriff's office would, under this bill, would report to both budget committee as well as public safety with respect to the actual expenditures in the following month. I do want to add, you had asked a question in the middle of your, about the uniqueness of this particular office or this legislation. I would point out that there is a specific state statute that refers generally to sheriff's office. That is section 57.520, which makes the operation of sheriff a little different than recorder of deeds, whatever other state office you're referencing. And that state law requires that all necessary expenditures incurred by a sheriff in the conduct of his duty shall be paid upon requisition. So you are correct that this is unique to the sheriff's office, but I would also point out that the sheriff's office generally is unique with respect to how the expenditures of the office must be paid by the local government.
And in your amendment, you would want this expenditure that would have to go through the comptroller also be reported to budget and public safety on a monthly basis, which I know me and you talked about this. I think about 3 members of public safety sit on budget, so we would hear it in budget Wednesday, and you sit on budget, and then hear it in public safety, the same exact reporting the next day, which we could have worked out a department or a committee, but it is what it is. I think more I want to get to is that the conversation that you just had with Alderwoman Keys is that you said you're amendable to taking out, I think, an agreement that you made in committee of how we were able to get to the current bill that is amended now. So are you now retracting your word that you want to go back to the original bill with not having the 12-month period?
No, sir. I think you're reading too much into that. I stand by the bill 33 as amended in committee as it is here on this floor. This is the bill that we worked on through committee. This is the bill that I am supporting here on the floor. This is the bill that I want passed by this body.
Got you. So if there was an amendment to strip out that 12-month time period, you wouldn't support it, but you would be willing to at least entertain it on the floor?
I'm saying for the purpose of discussion, I'd be willing to discuss it and entertain it. But let me make very clear.
Would you vote for the amendment to change the bill?
I would not.
Okay.
Again, as we've discussed and as you've pointed out, while I think it's healthy for discussion, I stand by Bill 33 as amended by committee, as you and I discussed.
Gotcha.
Yes, sir.
And I appreciate I just want to get clarity on where you stand on the current version of the bill. And I appreciate that clarity. And I do appreciate, this is one of the pieces of legislation that I don't think there's no legislation we all agree with 100%. But, coming to the table with you and being able to say, how do we make, what I think we say sometimes in Jeff City, a bad bill a little better? How do we make this bill a little better? And you being able to work together to work with your colleagues to try to make some changes to it, I greatly appreciate, and I appreciate your leadership.
And let me just point out, too, with respect to that discussion and earlier comments you made, that we are not adding additional duties onto the sheriff's office. We're merely clarifying those duties as established by both state statute as well as a long history of action by this particular office.
But to be clear, when you say we're not adding, the state statute doesn't say the transport of detainees, which I think we all want to ensure that our detainees, and I don't want to, let me clear the record, our residents and our community members at the CJC have proper transportation that is not currently in the state statute, correct?
Our goal is to make sure that medical detainees that require health treatment are promptly transported for that treatment.
Don't disagree with you, but again, to the question, that's not in the state statute, correct? Under the sheriff's obligation,
No,
is that in the state statute?
To answer your question, like most duties, it is not specifically set forth. That is
in
correct.
the state statute, does it state that the sheriff's role and responsibility is to transport the residents at the CJC in the city of St. Louis?
No, absolutely not. The state statute is not that specific.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Alderwoman from the 12th.
Madam President, members of the board, if the Alderman from the 5th would yield.
The Alderman from the 5th yield to questioning from the Alderwoman from the 12th.
Yes, I do.
Alderwoman, you may proceed.
Thank you. I am going to bring your attention to page 1 of 4, line 21, which reads, whereas section 57.290 revised Missouri statute provides that all sheriffs in the state of Missouri shall take convicted offenders to reception and diagnostic centers as designated by the Director of Department of Corrections. I am somehow failing to find that. I have the state statute before me, and I don't see that, and I was wondering if you could refer me to that language, because I don't find it in section 57.290.
Alderman, let me see if I can find that. You're catching me without access to the statute. Give me one moment.
Thank you.
Alderwoman, section 57.290 RSMO, titled Charges in Criminal Cases, subsection 2. For the services of taking... Subsection 2.
Okay, go ahead.
Quote, for the services of taking convicted offenders to the reception and diagnostic center designated by the director of the Department of Corrections. The sheriff, and then it talks in terms of various compensation for undertaking that particular duty.
So that is not mandatory that they should take it. That is, if the sheriff takes a convicted offender to the reception and diagnostic center, then that tells how, and the whole section 2 is about how they will be compensated for their services. It does not in any way say that all sheriffs in the state of Missouri shall take convicted offenders to reception and diagnostic centers as designated by the Department of the Direction of Correction. There's no place, because the state of Missouri is very careful about using the word shall, which is mandatory. And that could have easily said, because there are some other languages that are all throughout the state statutes that are mandatory, and they use the word shall all the time. This does not say he shall. It says how he or she, because there are some female sheriffs, how the sheriff will be compensated if they do the services. I've watched this from afar for a long time, and sometimes I think that people get involved in things that sometimes they really don't know how the state or the city and the county offices all work. The Alderman from the 14th was much more on point in saying we don't have the right, or the Alderman from the 11th, to do a lot of what people want to say we can. At one point, we being the Board of Aldermen, had the right to make the treasurer come before us and do a number of things. The treasurer became the mayor, and the first thing she did is run up to Jefferson City and got that taken away from us. I find this whole catastrophe that's been going on for several months sad, because a lot of things that have been put out in the press just have not been true. And I don't agree with everything the sheriff has done, and I have had personal conversations about what I didn't believe he should have done, even if he legally could have done. But I've looked and scoured where it mandates this whole state statute, everything that I could find about the sheriff, because one of the things you need to know about the sheriff in St. Louis, they have duties that are different than the sheriffs in other counties. We, the city of St. Louis and Kansas City, are unique in that we are a city and then we are a county. And so we have different offices that do not report to the Board of Aldermen. They don't report to the mayor. They don't report to a lot of people. We wish they did. And we've gone to Jefferson City at some points in times and had certain people report to us, speaking specifically of the treasurer. And as soon as that treasurer became the mayor, she went to Jefferson City and had that changed back. I watched what happened and I called it the persecution. I'm on record of when Tashara Jones was the treasurer. I stood in defense of her in her office of the way I thought the Board of Aldermen was just horrible in treating her. I'm not a fan of her as the mayor, but I was a big defender of her as the treasurer. It's all on record. So I understood when she went to Jefferson City as the mayor and said, this is ridiculous. We do not have the ability, because when I read your legislation, it talks about the rules that the Board of Aldermen has. I want you to know we do not have the ability to make laws that override the state statute. We do not have the ability to put in a board bill that the state statute provides something when it doesn't. If you read that state statute, and I invite everybody to read it, it in no way says that the sheriff is mandated to transport anybody. And anybody who says that is not telling the truth. It says, for services of taking convicted offenders to the reception and diagnostic center designated by the director of the Department of Correction, the sheriff, county marshal, or other officers shall receive the sum of $8 per day for the time actually and necessarily employed in traveling to and from the reception and diagnostic center, and each guard shall receive the sum of $6 per day for the same, and the sheriff, county marshal, or other officers and guards shall receive the mileage rate prescribed by this section for the distance necessarily traveled and going to and from the reception and diagnostic center. The time and distance to be estimated by the most usually traveled route from the place of departure to the reception and diagnostic center. The mileage rate prescribed by this section for each mile traveled shall be allowed to the sheriff to cover all expenses on each convicted offender while being taken to the reception and diagnostic center. And all persons convicted and sentenced to imprisonment in the Department of Corrections at any time or sitting of the court shall be taken to the reception and diagnostic center at the same time, unless prevented by sickness or unavoidable accident. In cities having a population of 200,000 inhabitants or more, convicted offenders shall be taken to the reception and diagnostic center as often as the sheriff deems necessary. There is no mandatory language at all from the state statute. And just in case I wasn't sure, I have the good fortune of knowing a lot of judges and people who've been doing this, and not one of them found what you said, which is that the sheriff, section 57290 provides that all sheriffs in the state of Missouri shall take convicted offenders to reception and diagnostic center. That is not the language. That is not the language any place in here. And this is language in section 2 that is only and only about how they will be compensated. If you want to look at the word shall, how it's used, it's in section 1. It says, in cities and counties having a population of 300,000 inhabitants and over, each deputy sheriff, not more than 2, shall be allowed for each day during the day term of court $6 to be paid by the city or county of 300,000. And again, that talks to compensation. It does not mandate any place. And that has come to the gist of what we have had this argument about. And I've had the fortune of being the chair of almost all of these combined committees over the years. When I was the chair of streets, we had the treasurer's office, and this was before the current sheriff was there. We had a problem with the treasurer's office was having crime happen at the garages, and they needed to get some extra security. This is an extra duty for the sheriff. They wanted the sheriff, but they didn't have the contract worked out. Because I was able to call the sheriff, the previous sheriff, and give him my word we were going to work this thing out, he started his duties, which were extra, which we have a contract for. If you want to have the sheriff mandated to have to do this, you have to go to Jeff City, and it has to be written. We cannot change the duties of the sheriff. We are not that powerful. If we could, I would do a lot of things different, but we are not that powerful. We do not have the duties, and that does not say that. There's no place where it says, and I will ask you again, where it provides that all sheriffs in the state of Missouri shall take convicted offenders to reception and diagnostic centers as designated by the director of the department. It does not say that. And we have to, if we're going to sit down with the sheriff and be fair, and the Alderman from the 11th brought it up, we're going to have to do what the treasurer's office did. We're either going to have to add a contract and ask them to do it, because just because we say, well, you've been doing it, that doesn't make it the law. The law is he's not required to do that. And if we want him to do that, we can contract with him to do extra. His primary duty, which is what you're going to run into with the judges, is to protect the courts. As a former criminal lawyer back when I was a public defender, I can tell you the number of times when the municipal court used to be right across our parking lot, that criminals ran out of the courts because we didn't have enough sheriffs there. So if I'm a judge and the judges are going to do this, their primary duty is going to be to protect the courts. That is his duty. And the judges are going to side with him. Just watch what I tell you, because that's his primary duty. And that's her if she's a sheriff. And so if we want him to do extra things, then we ought to sit down with him and negotiate a contract and pay him for that extra amount. Or if he does it, it tells what he can get paid in the state statute. But if we want it to be something that he does formally, we need to negotiate the same way that we did with the treasurer's office. And to try to act like that he is required to, or put that in a piece of legislation that it says that all sheriffs shall take, is just disingenuous to me, and it is not true. And I will not be supporting this legislation, not because I don't believe that we ought to have good services, but that I think that we ought to be truthful about what is required. And I also think that we ought to be consistent about what people do. Because I've been around here so long, if we start talking about people's budgets and about if they buy cars, or if they buy badges, I can tell you so much more about the police than they would want me to. I can talk about different offices that have cost the city a lot of money. One of them is my good friend, but it's cost the city a lot of money that nobody says anything about. And this is an unfair piece of legislation. It is not a fair piece of legislation. I will not be supporting it because it does not require the sheriff to transport prisoners to the specific, to the what is it called? I want to make sure I use the correct term. Diagnostic centers, which is another name for hospitals. It doesn't require, we can't require, the state law can. You can go up there and lobby your legislators, and you can change it, and then he would be required. But I would also caution you, because if that's what sheriffs are going to be required across the state, then I think we're going to have to pay them more money, and we're going to have to make sure that they have enough sheriffs and enough money to pay their sheriffs and enough money to hire enough sheriffs that they're covering the courts first, because that's what they have to do, and their other duties. We can make this all about him and use this as a ramrod if you want to. I will be very much opposed to it because it is not fair. And if we're going to do this, I want to bring some of the other county offices specifically and bring them and talk about how we lost money from the mistakes that they made and nobody has said a word, or the lawsuit that we lost and nobody has said a word. But now all of a sudden we're after this young man. And I'm not saying that, and I told him, I said, hey, you're doing some of this. This is going to bring heat. I believe a lot of this has to do with that he did not renew people who were employed for long times in the sheriff's office. And he did something that was a no, because he didn't talk to people. He didn't go through what people thought was the proper procedure. But what I found out, because I thought like, oh, you fired the people. No, he didn't. He doesn't have to renew those people. As much as the mayor doesn't have to renew the directors. When the new mayor comes in, 14 directors get to leave if the mayor wants to, unless they reappoint. So I do not agree with you that the section 57290 says that the sheriff in the state of Missouri shall take prisoners. That is not what it says. This is much more about how it be compensated if they will. And that makes your legislation fatally flawed to me. That he asked for you to bring forth something saying what his duties are. You have to be very careful. You cannot take and restate what the law says. It does not say that all sheriffs in the state. That is not what the law says. And I will be opposed to this legislation. I think it's unfair. I think it's a young man who has done some things that I didn't agree with. But a lot of the stuff that has been put out in the universe has not been truthful. From, oh, he is hiring his relatives, prove not truthful. And so you get a gang mentality that I do not agree with. I am much more, let's get to the facts. When he brought his father and did DNA, then people are talking about he bought new uniforms or badges. I actually know why he did, and I don't want to disparage the former sheriff, but there's a reason why he had to do some of that stuff. And sometimes having a real conversation instead of getting on the bandwagon might get you more information. And so, again, I want to repeat. Show me where it says that all sheriffs in the state of Missouri shall take convicted offenders to reception and diagnostic center, because I don't see it, and anybody that pulls it up will not see it because it doesn't say that. It says for the services of taking convicted offenders to the reception and diagnostic centers. Then that's how they tell about how it will be compensated. It doesn't say you shall. And I would challenge you again to show me the word shall in that document.
With that challenge, I will point you to the last sentence, which was in cities having a population of 200,000 inhabitants or more, which I believe is the...
Wait. Sorry, I'm sorry. Point me to what? Where?
This is actually the last sentence that you read into the record, Alderwoman.
Okay.
The challenge, I believe, was to point to you the presence of the word shall in the statute. In cities having a population...
The word shall... No, my challenge was to say where the sheriff had to. I see the word sheriff. I see the word sheriff shall there. Mine is where it says the sheriff shall have to take the prisoners to, I'm going to use hospital, okay? That is not what it says. It says a city has a population of 200,000 inhabitants or more. Convicted offenders shall be taken to the reception and diagnostic center as often as the sheriff deems necessary. It still does not mandatory. It's still not mandatory language to say the sheriff has to. It says, but if he does, he can take it as often as not we deem necessary. It actually gives the right to the sheriff.
I apologize, Alderwoman. I don't remember the question on the table. Would you please restate it for me?
My question on the table is, where does it mandate the sheriff to take offenders to hospitals?
Yes.
A diagnostic center.
Yes, ma'am. I would refer you to the case of State ex rel Missouri versus Jones, so that you can check the site. It is 556 Southwest 2nd, 735. It's a 1977.
Wait a minute, let me write it down. Wait, because you're going really fast. Let me get my pen and I will exactly check the site. What's the citation?
It's 556.
556.
Southwest 2nd.
Southwest?
735. It's out of the old St. Louis Court of Appeals. It's a 1977 case. It is a case involving one of Sheriff Montgomery's predecessors, who claimed.
Okay, but what I want, I want to stop you for a minute. And
Well, hold on, if I could finish my answer.
No, you cannot, because you're not answering my question. You're now taking me to a citation. What I want to see is in the state statute itself, which you cited, where does it mandate the sheriff to take the prisoners to a hospital, a diagnostic center? Where does it say the sheriff shall do that?
Alderwoman is a longtime lawyer. I am attempting to answer your question.
I'm a long time with gray hair. If my first thing is for you, as a longtime lawyer, I want you to answer my question. If you're going to cite me, send me to the citation. I will read that too. But here in this section, where does it say that? That's what I'm asking you. And that question, do you see the word, the sheriff shall take the prisoners to the hospital? It's mandated. Is there any place that you see it? Because I don't.
Yes, the phrase that I started to read that you cut me off, that talked in terms of cities having a population of 200,000 inhabitants, one of which is the city of St. Louis. Convicted offenders shall be taken to reception and diagnostic centers. And as you mentioned, that talks in terms of healthcare facilities. Now, I just want to point out, as a lawyer, a well-heeled lawyer, and you have been at it much, much longer than me, I grant you that. But you know as well as I that in the state of Missouri, we don't just look at statutes, we also look at cases. There are different ways in which laws are established. One is by statute. The second, when there is an issue about what the statute says, there is often litigation. And often following that litigation is an appellate case. So it's not just a matter of what a particular statute says. It's when there is an issue and it goes before the Court of Appeals, what does the appellate court say? And so that is a basis of this duty. I would also say, and I think one of the things that we must be very careful on when we suggest that Matt or this board or the budget committee or anybody else is putting a new responsibility on Sheriff Montgomery, the responsibility of this sheriff's office transporting detainees for many, many years is well located within both our ordinances and state law. It is without dispute that as early as 1971, there was a mention, a requirement that the old city hospital issue permits to deputy sheriffs assigned to guard prisoners. Again, the issue was the sheriff saying we're not getting a permit so that we can park and then transport prisoners. This is the position of the office, one of Sheriff Montgomery's predecessors. We then have the case in 1977, and then as little as 25 years ago, we had Sheriff Murphy approach the budget committee, recognizing this responsibility and saying, I need additional money in my budget to do this job. So this isn't Devotee or this board expanding the duties of this office. This is something that happened for decades going back to this particular office holder. So with that dispute in mind, That is the purpose of this ordinance. Nothing more, nothing less, but to clarify duties.
Okay, so then I will go back to you. And I have been a longtime lawyer. And one of the things when I first came to the Board of Aldermen, just to tell you about how people quote things that are not true, I always refused to be called an alderman. When I got there, I was so shocked because they said Alderman Tyus. I never ran as an alderman. I always ran as an alderwoman. And I knew that the members of Congress who were females were called congresswomen. And so when I got down here, I said, no, I'm not an alderman. And they said, oh, no, you have to be because the charter requires you to. And I fought that, and we kept going through it. And finally, they had to admit the charter in no way required us to be called aldermen. There was something tucked away in our little ruse someplace. And when I said it, and Stephen Conway, who was elected 5 months before me, he said, well, it's the same thing. And I said, okay, Alderman, then we're going to call this the Board of Alderwomen. Then if this just the same. And then he said, you have my vote, Alderwoman. I tell you that to say that people often say something says one thing, and then it doesn't. So what my particular issue with you is that you said, you quoted in your legislation, you did not refer to a case law or anything like that. You referred to the state statute 57.290 and said that it provided that all sheriffs in the state of Missouri shall take convicted offenders to reception and diagnostic. It does not say that. It does not state that in any way. Now, let's go to your statement about that we can have case law. When we have case law, what normally happens if the state legislature agrees with it and says that's the law, they then incorporate it. And I've been doing this for a long time, and they change the state statutes. The state statutes can be changed very easily to reflect that it shall be mandatory for the sheriff to take these prisoners. It does not. It says if the sheriff does it, this is how we can compensate him. It's mandatory that he could not then say, I need to get $50 per prisoner because the state doesn't allow him to do that. But it does not mandate him to do that. And I'm going to tell you that you're going to run into judges if you say that he has to do this and he's saying he doesn't have enough people to cover the courts. The judges are going to say he's going to cover that court. And I was in those courts for a while. They're going to do it, and they're right. They're absolutely right, because that's what he's mandated to. And I will tell you, I don't care what Sheriff Murphy came and said before this astute body many years ago. Just because he says this is something I got to do and I need more money, that doesn't mean Sheriff Murphy is a lawyer and gets to interpret what the law says, okay? He can say, I'm trying to do this for you. Thank you very much, Sheriff Murphy. I'm trying to get this done. But even he was saying, as you just said, because I don't remember him saying this, that he needed more money. I have never heard the sheriff say he didn't want to. He has always said to me and speaking to me is that he needed more money to do this. The reason why I was before the budget committee is because we negotiate a budget, but we weren't giving him enough. And so he said to us, I'm going to do my primary duty first because we don't have any right to mandate. And I will also subject to you that we do not have a right to make an ordinance that's in violation or supersedes the state statutes. We are local law. The state statutes override us often. I can tell you, and the president knows this, when they first came down here and the alderman from the 3rd Ward, we got together and there was a law that said, oh, you can hurry up and pass legislation that will give you minimum wage. We worked together tirelessly and got it done and got the president through some trickery, the then president, not the current one, to call a special meeting, and we got minimum wage passed. The state legislators went right back up into Jefferson City and changed the law after the people were getting the minimum wage and took it away. So just because some court says it, that is not what the state legislature says. And it's not been, and I haven't had a chance to read this case, I will read it. But if they wanted it updated, and with all the hoopla that's been going on, the very simple thing, they were in special session, and I don't know, I'm not sure of their procedure, if they could have then brought it up and changed it. The way to get this done is not an ordinance, it is state statute. And that's what we have state reps for, and that's what we have state senators for. We do not have that authority to do it, and we most certainly should not be doing it based on false language that is not said in the state statute. I am not saying that you're doing this on purpose. I'm saying it just doesn't say that. And I will read the case law, and I pulled it up, and let's see here. I pulled it up, and what I got, I want to make sure the case you cited to me is Southwestern Report. It said the case is published in volume 556 of Southwestern Reporters. And the case summary is a motor car company sued the Citizens Trust Company. Is that the case law you're citing to me?
The citation is State Ex Rel Missouri versus Jones, Jones. The page is
I must have something wrong. Is it 556 Southwest 2nd Edition 735?
735. That's what I wrote down.
Okay, when I pull this up, it comes up and says it's a case about the motor car company sued the Citizen Trust Company. So something is wrong someplace. And it's an Arkansas, one that comes up for me is Arkansas Supreme Court case, Citizen Trust v. Service Motor Company.
No, ma'am, this is a old St. Louis Court of Appeals case. I'm trying to put my fingers on the case.
Give me just the name and I'll look it up that way.
State Ex Rel Missouri versus Jones.
Okay, and this I see State Ex Rel v. Jones 1992. Oh, this is about Vervis Jones. Okay. Let's see here. I don't see any such case. When I put in State Ex Rel versus Jones, it comes up 1992, and it's about Tom Villavich, Shamo, and Vervis Jones. Okay, and so I'm still trying to find the case. When you said it's in 2000, what was the year? I'll put the year in.
It's a 1977 case, 556 Southwest 2nd,
okay,
736.
Would you be able to, do you have it on a digital form that you could send to me? Because that is not what I'm getting.
I'm sure I do. I do not have it at my fingertips to send you it.
Here's what I'm going to say, and I know you're not going to do it. I want to read the case law. I'm going to look for the case law. What I do know is that your ordinance is incorrect. The state statute doesn't say that. If you want to try to correct it and say, do the citation for the case law, okay. But section 57290 revised state Missouri provides that all sheriffs in the state of Missouri shall take convicted offenders is incorrect and will be a good way for there to be a lawsuit. They will win. It does not say that. And I would suggest that you correct your ordinance with proper citation if you're saying that, because the state law doesn't say that at all. And I'm not going to support any such thing. If we have a right to do that, then I want to see it. I'm not for a weak board of aldermen, but I'm also not for a board of aldermen that goes beyond their scope of what they can do and uses stuff that is not in the state law.
Understood.
To move on, because you got your position and I have mine. I'm going to recommend to people they not vote for this. This is not correct. And it is not cited correctly. If there is such a case, I will look for the case. I will have other people looking for the case. In fact, people are sending me stuff as I speak and saying, you're right. So I will be looking for this. It's not a good look for us to be going out and on something that is just incorrect. I'm often that person that will come and tell you that it's not you personally. I do it with friends and foe. This is not correct, and we should not be doing this ordinance based on what this says, because that is absolutely incorrect. And I want a roll call because I will be voting no.
Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Seeing none, Alderman from the 5th, you are recognized to close.
Madam President, members of the board, I would ask that Board Bill 33, as amended in committee, be perfected.
It's been moved by the Alderman from the 5th, seconded by the Alderman from the 9th, that we perfect Board Bill 33 as amended in committee. There's been a request for roll call. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderwoman Schweitzer. Alderman Oldenburg. Alderman Cone. Alderman Narayan. Alderman Devoti.
Aye.
Alderwoman Velazquez. Alderwoman Sanye. Alderwoman Cox Antwi. Alderman Browning.
Aye.
Alderwoman Clark Hubbard. Aye. Alderwoman Keys. Alderwoman Tyus.
No.
Alderwoman Boyd.
Aye.
Alderman Aldridge. President Green.
Aye.
Alderman Cone.
Aye.
Alderwoman Sanye. 13 aye votes and 1 no vote.
By your vote, you have sustained the motion from the Alderman from the 5th to perfect Board Bill 33 as amended in committee.
That's the extent of board bills for perfection.
Report of engrossment.
Board Bill 47.
Third reading and final passage of Board Bills consent.
Board Bill 47.
Alderwoman from the 10th, you're recognized on the motion to adopt the third reading and final passage of Board Bills on the consent calendar.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. I move that we adopt the third reading and finally passage of board bills on the consent calendar.
It's been moved by the Alderwoman from the 10th, seconded by the Alderwoman from the 1st, that we adopt the third reading and final passage of Board Bills on the consent calendar. Any discussion? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderwoman Schweitzer. Alderman Oldenburg. Alderman Cone. Alderman Narayan. Alderman Devoti.
Aye.
Alderwoman Velazquez. Alderwoman Sanye. Alderwoman Cox Antwi. Alderman Browning.
Aye.
Alderwoman Clark Hubbard.
Aye.
Alderwoman Keys. Alderwoman Tyus.
Aye.
Aye.
Alderwoman Boyd.
Aye.
Alderman Aldridge. President Green.
Aye.
15 aye votes.
By your vote, you sustain the motion from the Alderwoman from the 10th to third read and finally pass the aforementioned bills. Third reading and final passage of Board Bills.
Board Bill 47. I'm sorry, we have none.
We can dispense with line item 20. Reported the finally passed and signed by the President.
Board Bill 47.
All other business being suspended, the President shall in open session affix her signature hereto to then that these may become law. Alderman from the 14th, you are recognized on the motion to suspend the rules for the purposes of introducing Resolution 101 for.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. I move to suspend the rules and introduce Resolution 101.
It's been moved by the Alderman from the 14th, seconded by the Alderwoman from the 7th, that we suspend the rules for the purpose of introducing Resolution 101 for first reading. This is a non-debatable motion. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderwoman Schweitzer. Alderman Oldenburg. Alderman Cone. Alderman Narayan. Alderman Devoti.
Aye.
Alderwoman Velazquez. Alderwoman Sanye. Alderwoman Cox Antwi. Alderman Browning. Alderwoman Clark Hubbard. Alderwoman Keys. Alderwoman Tyus. Alderwoman Boyd.
Aye.
Alderman Aldridge.
Aye.
President Green.
Aye.
Alderwoman Tyus. Alderwoman Tyus.
I'm sorry, I'm trying to find it. I was looking for it. So present.
14 aye votes and 1 voted present.
By your vote, you sustain the motion. The 14th, could please place Resolution 101 at the end of the first reading of resolutions.
So noted.
First reading resolutions in reference to committees.
Resolution 92, sponsored by Alderwoman Sanye, President Green, Alderwoman Clark Hubbard, Alderman Browning, Alderwoman Velazquez, and Alderman Aldridge, urging Ameren, Missouri to pause disconnection and provide meaningful relief to tornado-impacted residents.
Alderwoman from the 7th, you are recognized on the first reading of Resolution 92.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. Madam Clerk, may you read the resolution?
Resolution 92, urging Ameren, Missouri to pause disconnection and provide meaningful relief to tornado-impacted residents. Whereas on May 16, 2025, a devastating tornado struck St. Louis, destroying homes, displacing families, and leaving residents with trauma and housing instability. Whereas thousands of households are still in crisis months later, navigating the trauma of disaster recovery while facing uncertainty about their ability to remain connected to essential utility service. Whereas, following the storm, the electric company provider, Ameren, Missouri, initially paused shutoffs and offered some financial assistance to impact households, but those measures were limited, and Ameren is once again disconnecting customers who are behind on the electric bill. Whereas being disconnected from electricity during extreme heat waves, which are becoming more and more frequent, poses immediate and severe risk, especially for children, seniors, and vulnerable groups. Whereas, although American maintains customer assistance programs, advocacies, and residents have reported that many of the most vulnerable tornado survivors are not being reached, leaving families at risk of disconnection despite enormous needs. Whereas in June 2025, Ameren, Missouri raised electricity rates by around 12%, increasing costs by $14 per month for a typical household, placing additional financial strains on households already struggling to keep up with bills post-tornado recovery. Whereas best practice in disaster recovery include pausing utility disconnection and forgiving debt for households directly impacted by the disaster, ensuring the families are not forced deeper into hardship while rebuilding their lives. Whereas Ameren has demonstrated capacity to implement such humanitarian measures, having paused disconnection during past crises. Whereas local advocacy groups, including the Sierra Club, Action St. Louis, and others have called upon Ameren, Missouri to pause disconnection through the end of 2025 and forgive the utility debt of tornado-impacted households. Whereas preventing disconnection during recovery period will protect the health, safety, and well-being of tornado survivors, strengthen the community resilience, and demonstrate that Ameren is a partner in the tornado recovery efforts. Now, therefore, be resolved by the Board of Aldermen of the City of St. Louis that we pause in our deliberation to urge Ameren, Missouri to initiate a moratorium on utility disconnection for tornado-impacted residents until at least December 31st, 2025, and to forgive utility debt accrued by households directly harmed by the May 16, 2025 storm. We further direct the clerk of the board to prepare a formal copy of this resolution by the clerk to those deemed appropriate by its sponsor. Introduced this 12th day of September 2025 by the Honorable Alicia Sanye, Alderwoman of the 7th Ward, and Honorable Megan Green, President of the Board of Aldermen.
Alderwoman from the 7th, you are recognized on the first reading resolution number 92.
Thank you, Madam President and members of the board. I think this resolution is.
Would you like to request unanimous consent?
Yes. I make a motion for unanimous consent.
There's been an objection. Would you like to suspend the rules or send to committee?
I would like to suspend the rules.
Would you like to make that motion?
Make a motion to suspend the rules.
Second.
It's been moved by the Alderwoman from the 7th, seconded by the Alderman from the 14th, that we suspend the rules for the purposes of adopting resolution number 92. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderwoman Schweitzer. Alderman Oldenburg. Alderman Cone. Alderman Narayan. Alderman Devoti. Alderwoman Velazquez. Alderwoman Sanye.
Aye.
Alderwoman Cox Antwi. Alderman Browning. Alderwoman Clark Hubbard. Alderwoman Keys. Alderwoman Tyus.
Aye.
Alderwoman Boyd.
Aye.
Alderman Aldridge.
Aye.
President Green.
Aye.
15 aye votes.
By your vote, you sustain the motion of the Alderwoman from the 7th. You are now recognized on the motion to adopt resolution number 92.
Thank you. I would like to make a motion to adopt resolution 2.
Second.
It's been moved by the Alderman from the 7th, seconded by the Alderman from the 14th, that we adopt resolution number 92. Alderwoman, you may proceed.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. I think the resolution is pretty self-explanatory. But right now in our city, we have thousands of people who are having to relocate and figuring out their housing situation. And one of the barriers in place is that Ameren has resumed disconnections. And so what that means is, for people who are living in housing that is currently inhabitable, or maybe your housing has a yellow tag, while you're having to figure out how you're going to get your food, how you're going to get your clothing, how you're going to restore furniture, or while you're having to relocate your entire household, you also have this additional barrier. And so I think it's really important that we do what we can to encourage our Ameren provider to show up as they have for other natural disasters that we've had in the past, and to resume the pausing of Ameren bills, as well as to consider forgiving the debt for those that have been tornado impacted.
Any further discussion? Alderman from the 2nd.
Will the Alderwoman from the 7th please yield for a question?
Will the Alderwoman from the 7th yield to questioning from the Alderman?
Yes.
Alderman, you may proceed.
Thank you, Alderwoman. I just have a question. There's just one utility mentioned here. I'm just curious if the other utility providers, MSD, Spire, are adhering to the call to action to not have any disconnections through the end of 2025, and what the source of that information means. I think the spirit of this is great. I think this is something the local government should call on our utility providers to look into and act. I just worry about when we single out one utility and that we have it as a matter of fact that they are the only ones that are in fact discontinuing disconnect for utility services.
So just in regards to your question, right now, MSD does not do disconnections. The sewer program, they're not doing any disconnections. The water department is not doing disconnections for tornado impacted areas. Inspire currently has a pause on disconnections that is in effect at least until the end of this month.
Okay, that's great. That answers my question. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Any further discussion? Go Alderwoman from the 10th and then 14th. Alderwoman from the 10th.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. Actually, this is just some additional context probably for our constituents that are watching. Just want to also uplift that Ameren did just put, I think, $4 million on the ground in utility assistance that you can still apply for. So if you're watching this and you're in need of assistance, please reach out to the different entities that offer that. There are several, Urban League, Heat Up, St. Louis, different entities that offer that here now today if you're watching this. So as we're having this conversation and putting this out here, I want to make sure that if any of our constituents are in fear of disconnection and need that assistance, I want to publicly thank Ameren for that additional $4 million that they put on top of the other assistance that they put out. And on top of, I do want to say that every time I called Ameren on the ground for my constituents during this tornado relief, during this now 100, almost 20 days, they have always answered the call and responded. So thank you, Alderwoman Sanye, for uplifting this, and just wanted to also share that additional context.
Alderman from the 14th.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. I also want to thank the Alderwoman for bringing this forward. I think, this is critical, especially during the time of the tornado, that we're making sure that, even though a resolution, can't do ordinance change stuff, but it's sending a clear message, I think, where we stand at the board. I do want to echo a little bit of what the Alderwoman from the 10th said. So there is about $4 million in utility assistance on top of $1 million that they already had. People are eligible up to about $1,400 in their bill assistance. September 16th from 9:30 to about 3:30, they'll be at the Urban League. September 17th, 9:30 to 3:30, they'll be at the Byers YMCA on Page. And then September 23rd from 9:30 to 3:30, they'll be at O'Fallon. So as we are, I think, doing our part from the board, I think like the Alderwoman said, just want to put out those resources that are out there. Heat Up St. Louis, as a former employee, does a wonderful job. They will literally get you assistance within the same day of you filling out that application. So for people to know those resources are out there. And with that, I'll make a motion that we embank this resolution.
Is there a second? It's been moved by the Alderman from the 14th, seconded by the Alderman from the 4th, that we embank resolution number 92. Is there any discussion on the motion to embank? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Resolution 92 is now in bank. Any further discussion? Seeing none, Alderwoman from the 7th, you are recognized to close.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. Thank you all for sharing that information on the floor. I think that is a part of why we do these resolutions, have these conversations. Definitely want to thank Ameren for the work that they've done to support residents, but also want to uplift that a lot of residents are obviously not leaving their homes, and we want to eliminate every hoop and every barrier as possible for residents to get assistance. And so definitely appreciate the additional funds and the investment, but it is best practices to simply pause those things. And so I appreciate all of the support of all of my colleagues today. I appreciate the continued conversation with Ameren, and really, I think this is also an opportunity to talk about the ways that many of our utility companies have risen to the occasion and paused and put in special programs to assist residents in those areas, and to highlight that that work is far from done, and we're going to need to continue to have these conversations as recovery is going to be a long pathway forward.
That it's been moved by the Alderwoman from the 7th, seconded by the Alderman from the 14th, that we adopt resolution number 92. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Resolution 94, sponsored by Alderwoman Velazquez. President Green, Alderwoman Schweitzer, Alderman Oldenburg, Alderman Cone, Alderman Ryan, Alderman Devotie, Alderwoman Sanye, Alderwoman Cox-Antwi, Alderman Browning, Alderwoman Clark Hubbard, Alderwoman Keys, Alderwoman Tyus, Alderwoman Boyd, and Alderman Aldridge. Recognizing Hispanic Heritage Month and flying the Hispanic Heritage flag.
Alderwoman from the 6th, you are recognized on the first reading resolution 94.
Thank you, Madam President. It's pretty self-explanatory, I think. I would like to request unanimous consent to pass this resolution. Obviously, Hispanic Heritage Month starts officially.
Hearing no objection to unanimous consent, Alderwoman, you may proceed.
Thank you, Madam President. Hispanic Heritage Month starts on September 15th, which is Monday. I appreciate all my colleagues signing on to this resolution to support this community. And with that, I move to adopt this resolution.
It's been moved by the Alderwoman from the 6th, seconded by the Alderwoman from the 7th, that we adopt resolution number 94. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Resolution 101, sponsored by Alderman Aldridge, condemning the Missouri Legislature's second extraordinary session and its harmful impact on the people of Missouri.
Alderman from the 14th, you are recognized in the first reading resolution 101.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. I move unanimous consent on Resolution 101.
Hearing no objection, Alderman, you may proceed.
Thank you, Madam President. Madam Clerk, could you read Resolution 101?
Resolution 101, condemning the Missouri Legislature's second extraordinary session and its harmful impact on the people of Missouri. Whereas the Missouri General Assembly has been called into an extraordinary session not to address urgent needs, but to carry a partisan redistricting scheme that seeks to consolidate Republican power at both the state and federal levels by restricting citizens' initiative petition rights and gerrymandering congressional districts from the current 6-2 Republican to the Democratic split to a 7-1 Republican stronghold. And whereas this mid-decade redistricting represents an unprecedented attack on Democratic representation that seeks to overturn the will of the Missouri voters who elected Representative Emanuel Cleaver to represent the Kansas City area. And whereas the proposed Missouri First map would fragment Kansas City's diverse communities across the multiple congressional districts, deliberately diluting the voting power of urban and minority constituents. Whereas this redistricting effort is not driven by population changes or legitimate redistricting criteria, but by naked political ambition to convert Missouri's current 6-2 congressional delegation to a 7-1 Republican stronghold. And whereas the initiative petition reforms fundamentally undermine Missouri citizens' constitutional right to directly participate in democracy by requiring statewide ballot measures to pass in every congressional district, effectively giving rural minorities veto power over the will of the over the majority. And whereas the initiative petition reform is coming not on the heels of corruption, but because the citizenry of Missouri recently passed progressive reform, including raising the minimum wage, enshrining paid family leave, enacting campaign finance reform, and increasing access to marijuana. Whereas requiring ballot measures to pass in all 8 congressional districts would make it virtually impossible for citizens to enact reforms on issues like health care, education, or workers' rights that may be opposed to special interests. Whereas the Republican leadership has employed rarely used procedural maneuvers to push this legislation through without adequate debate, deliberation, or public input. Whereas this extraordinary session represents government by intimidation, as President Trump has openly threatened Republican lawmakers who failed to support his redistricting demands. And whereas the timing and manner of this extraordinary session demonstrates a troubling disregard for Democratic norms, fair representation, and the principles of good governance that should guide Missouri's legislator. And whereas these measures would enrich partisan power at the expense of competitive election, minority representation, and the fundamental democratic principle that every vote should count equally. Now therefore be it resolved by the Board of Aldermen of the City of St. Louis that we pause in our deliberation to condemn the practices of the Missouri legislature that put the desire to consolidate power over the desire to serve the people. We further direct the clerk of the Board of Aldermen to spread a copy of this resolution across the minutes of the proceedings, to prepare a formal copy of this resolution to the end that it may be presented to those deemed appropriate by the sponsor. Introduced this 12th day by the Honorable Alderman Rasheen Aldridge, Alderman of the 14th Ward, and co-sponsors Honorable Megan Green, President of the Board, and Honorable Daniela Velasquez, Alderwoman of the 6th Ward.
Alderman of the 14th, you are recognized on the adoption of Resolution 101.
Thank you, Madam President. I move to adopt Resolution 101.
It's been moved by the Alderman from the 14th, seconded by the Alderwoman from the 7th, that we adopt Resolution 101. Alderman, you may proceed.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. 101, I think, is a statement that we're sending to extreme MAGA Republicans that honestly what is happening in Jefferson City is not just taking away the people's voices. It's not just not abiding by democracy, but I'm going to call it for what it is. It is Republicans who are more willing to do the bidding of Trump and trying to draw maps that are racist and trying to dilute direct black power. In 2022, when I was a state rep, there was an opportunity during the census process. Every 10 years, we redraw our maps in Missouri and in other states after the census. Republicans tried to do this 7-1 map back in 2002, and it failed. And here we are in 2025 because they Big Daddy, Donald Trump, has called them and has called other state houses to say, hey, we need to redraw the line so that we can hold the line when it comes to the midterms. It's clear that they know that they are losing the message when it comes to Americans all across this country. They rather talk about continuing to the Second Amendment and supporting tax cuts for the rich instead of trying to figure out how that everyday Americans, Missourians, can be able to afford eggs, bread, and milk and instead represent the working family. At the same time, as they're trying to gerrymander the map and get rid of the only pastor that is in Congress that has been serving in the Kansas City area for, I want to say, about 17 years now. They're also trying to make it harder for the people to be able to put things on the ballot. We know that Republicans go up there and they do the special interests of lobbyists, and they do not do the work of making sure that democracy is actually being uplifted. So when Republicans don't do their job and Democrats try to fight for the right to vote, when Democrats try to fight for a minimum wage increase, when Democrats try to make sure that people have the right to choose what they want to do with their body, or legalize marijuana and can't get it done, there's a process called the initiative petition process, which now Republicans are trying to make that harder because only thing they know how to do is cheat, lose, and be racist. And this resolution, right now, as we are talking about this resolution, you have our Democratic colleagues from the Senate that are actually filibustering to make sure that this stops. We got a Governor Kehoe who is also bending over to the Big Daddy Donald Trump instead of actually doing the will of the people by listening to about 40% of the electorate, which are Democrats that have voted to say, hey, we need to have fair maps, a 6-2 map, and to make sure that there's an initiative petition process. But again, they rather cheat, they rather lie, and they rather steal than actually trying to win on principle and actually trying to win on values. And I think, this is just, even though CD1 map is not being affected because we are under the Civil Rights Act, just because we're not being affected, we shouldn't wait and stand by when our other brothers and sisters in Kansas City, our other black and brown Missourians are now going to have a map that does not represent them, that literally draws Kansas City all the way from Columbia to Jefferson City. It's not right, and I want to thank our House and our Senate Democratic colleagues for standing up. I want to thank the hundreds of thousands of people that went up to Jeff City. I know you did, Madam President, as well as Mr. Yusuf Danshire and Janika Hayden and many others from this Board of Aldermen that went up and labored to try to let Republicans know that we will not stand by their cheating, and we want fair maps, and we want initiative petition process. And with that, I would open up for any questions.
Any further discussion? Alderman from the 9th.
Thank you. I'd like to be added as a co-sponsor if I'm not on there already.
Madam Clerk, please make note of that.
And I'd actually like to move to embank this.
It's been moved by
Objection.
There is
Objection.
an objection to embanking it, so we will, anybody who wants to be added as a co-sponsor, if you want to raise your hand right now, we will add you as a co-sponsor.
So I have Alderman from the 9th, the 10th, 8th, 4th, 3rd, 5th, 1, and the 7th, and the 2nd.
right, Alderman, you may proceed.
Thank you, and thank you to the Alderman from the 14th for bringing this forward. I watched the debate in Jefferson City around this, I kept hearing Republicans at the state level talk about how this is a Republican state, and therefore they needed to draw maps that reflected that, as they conveniently ignored the 40% of people who vote otherwise. They drew districts that honestly looked like they were drunk when they drew them, because they're not compact, they're not contiguous in many ways, and they purposefully crack Kansas City racially to disenfranchise people and make sure that they can win seats that they wouldn't otherwise win. Now, they were told multiple times that this is unconstitutional, that the Missouri Supreme Court has already ruled on this, that they cannot do redistricting in the middle of a decade after the census has already been completed, but they didn't care, because that's where we're at right now. They don't care about the Constitution. I'd also say that they don't care about democracy, because at this point, what we're describing here is not about, I should say, it's not only about fair representation, but it's about the democratic process. People in urban areas deserve representation and do not have the same interests as people who live in rural areas. It's just a fact. I'm actually quoting a Republican who said that just a few years ago before she turned around and voted for this new gerrymandered map. So I just stand today in solidarity with everyone who went to the Capitol to protest this, everyone who wants fair representation, and everybody who wants to make sure that we have a democratic process in this state to fight for our rights. It is no coincidence that they're doing this after we just protected the right to abortion in our state constitution. So I really hope that as we move forward, more people wake up to the fact that your vote does matter, that when they do this, they are telling you that your vote matters, because if it didn't, they wouldn't be trying to cheat you out of it. And again, thank you to the Alderman from the 14th. I really appreciate how you've written this and for bringing this forward today. I think this is important that we speak up at the local level in support of our colleagues at the state level.
Alderwoman from the 8th.
Thank you, Madam President. I also just want to, I also just want to thank the Alderman from the 14th for bringing this resolution forward and echo the Alderman's from the 9th's remarks. I was one of the members of this body that was down in Jefferson City, and what I witnessed was really powerful, seeing all of the people that came from all corners of the state to stand up for their rights and to protect their vote. And I think by this body making this stance and underscoring that, it is really powerful because our friends in Kansas City are having their voices disenfranchised. And as the representatives of the city of St. Louis community, I think it's important that we stand in solidarity with them and for the people in the county that are having their votes disenfranchised. So I just wanted to echo the remarks of the Alderman of the 9th, but then also underscore why this body needs to respond to what's happening in Jefferson City and why the response from us is very important. So thank you, Alderman from the 14th, for bringing this forward.
Alderwoman from the 12th.
If the Alderman from the 14th would yield.
The Alderman from the 14th yields questioning from the Alderwoman from the 12th.
I do.
Alderwoman, you may proceed.
Thank you. Have you ever met Representative Cleaver at all?
Yes, I've met him.
Okay, so you know him to be a fine gentleman, scholar, really cares about his community. And want you to know that when I lived in Kansas City, he actually was my minister. I lived right down the street from his church, so I've known him since before you were alive. I absolutely am appalled at what is happening with redistricting. But I want to say that sometimes chickens come home to roost, because the most appalling redistrictings that have happened to the people, citizens in the city of St. Louis, and especially in North St. Louis, has come from this Florida Board of Aldermen. Not only with redistricting, but also with stealing seniority and disrespect of the Black citizens in North St. Louis. I also want to bring to fact that we're talking about Republicans And I don't want to talk about them in such a bad light. Maybe I don't like this group of what they're doing, but you may not know this, but for many years, and I've done 4 redistrictings, 91, 2001, the Republicans saved the first congressional seat because it was the Democrats in the city of St. Louis, specifically the white Democrats, that came after the first congressional seat. And it was saved by the Republicans. Often had to be quiet little meetings because the white Democrats like the black people to vote for them a lot, but they don't like them to have the power that they earned. And so in 2001, this esteemed board of aldermen took away not only my right to vote, but also 2/3 of the real 20th Ward's right to vote because they could not beat me. And they violated the Constitution. I've talked about this a long time, many times, and everybody just looks at me like, what are you talking about? But now you understand it. Also, when I beat the president, the mayor, and the treasurer, when they came after me in 2023, then I was met with taking seniority and changing all the rules. And you guys don't even know how much the rules now at the Florida Board of Aldermen are like a dictatorship.
Point of order.
Give any kind of right to anybody. So what I'm saying is that
Please state your point of order.
Thank you, Madam President. I would just ask the Alderwoman from the Coast to stay germane to the resolution that is talking about, excuse me, I'm not finished talking about my point of order, that is talking about the gerrymandering and the what's happening in Jefferson City and the congressional maps. This has nothing to do with St. Louis City local maps or previous elections that happened in the past, or seniority. Has nothing to do with this resolution.
Alderwoman, please keep your remarks germane to the resolution. And Alderwoman, please do not interrupt me when I have the floor.
I am going right to it. If you had let me finish,
Please keep it germane to the resolution.
My question to him is, how can he bring about the conversation about redistricting and the things that he said on the floor, calling the Republicans names and things like that, and Big Daddy and all of that, when the gall, my question, the gall and the hypocrisy for pot to call the kettle black, pot, kettle, black. I want to say, how do you say those things when we have done those very things at the floor at this Board of Aldermen? Is it somehow different if it's on the federal level or if it's on the local level? Is it all equally wrong or just wrong when somebody else is doing it, not you? I just want to understand what your point is.
I'm sorry, I wasn't here when you got quote unquote gerrymandered. But again, I'm talking about the state house.
Gerrymandered. No. My community got gerrymandered. And the vote got taken away. Don't make it a personal thing. It's my entire community.
It seems like
right now, by the way, if you look at the map that we operate under right now, that's gerrymandered. That is a gerrymandered map with huge, big populations. The alderman from the 11th, which is illegal, not compact and contiguous. So take a look at the map. Goes from North St. Louis to the Central Quarter to South St. Louis. Illegal. Did you know that?
I have seen the maps in the city, but I'm talking about the state maps or the congressional maps. I'm sorry.
But if you're going to talk about compact and contiguous and what it should be, is it that I'm trying to understand.
Sounds like you should bring a resolution for the local maps.
That it only, and again, my question is it your position that it only matters at the federal level or the state level, but it doesn't matter at the local level?
It's my opinion for this resolution that it matters for the congressional maps, ma'am.
So does it matter for the state level? Does it matter for the local level?
If I stand germane to the resolution, it matters when it comes to congressional maps, Alderwoman.
Well, if we're going to talk about Constitution, that refers to all, not just to state or federal. It applies to local and everything. So we're not talking about the Constitution. We're just going to talk about this particular thing. So if I beat 500 people up, but I'm not talking about those 500. I'm just talking about this one that shouldn't be beaten up. Is that what I hear?
I don't follow.
I know you don't, because we don't follow hypocrisy and gall. Let me go on the record and say that I am opposed to what they are doing. But I've been opposed to this kind of gerrymandering for 30 some odd years now. When I finally found out what it was, I didn't know before I was elected. I didn't know the kind of gerrymandering that occurred. I soon found out year after year after year that the Black community in North St. Louis gets the short end of redistricting. We get our vote and our money taken away. And everybody thinks that that's okay. But this is something that we can get up and we can talk about how this is galling. This is terrible. We can call the President of the United States Big Daddy, and that the governor is bending over. And I would say there's all the things that we can say about the people who sit at this Board of Aldermen. Many of them are just the same people. So when you start to call the names, make sure that you look in the mirror and look at yourself, okay? I do not support the redistricting. I do not support changing the people's will. I don't do it for local, state, or federal. If people vote for somebody and they win, then they get that respect. Not let's change the rules. You said, I'm telling you that we, the Board of Aldermen, and especially the city of St. Louis, have no right talking about anybody because we have done it over and over and over. And if you think people don't see it, you're wrong. And I want to also bring up to you, are you aware, Alderman of the 14th, that now, besides Missouri doing it, that now other states that are Democratic are doing it, like Illinois, where I came from. Are you aware of that? California. So are you aware of that? Do we condemn those people also?
I'm aware of that, but I represent the city of St. Louis in Missouri, not California or Texas.
And so my question is, do we then condemn them also?
If you want to bring a resolution, you have the ability to do so, Alderwoman.
No, I'm asking you your opinion. Is it wrong totally, or is it just wrong in Missouri because they happen to be Republicans?
If anybody want to bring a resolution condemning the actions of other states, it does not stop them.
Are you not going to answer it?
I'm going to answer it. Do you want to answer? I'm answering it.
No, you didn't. You didn't answer. My question is it wrong to do this kind of redistricting totally, or is it just wrong in Missouri where the Republicans?
I think when any congressional seat is being gerrymandered, either if it's in Missouri or in other states, I do think it is wrong to do.
And that is, ding, 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 the correct answer. It's also wrong on the state level and the local level. That's what I wanted to see. But in this case, I will say the Democrats are doing it as a defensive tactic. So let me just say that I have all kind of feelings about that, because if we become them, how do we ever win? Okay, but I do understand why they're doing it, because you cannot play football and somebody else is knocking you down and you don't have to figure out a way to fight back. So I do not agree with what the Democrats are doing in Illinois and California, but I have to say, if it's going to happen in Texas and Missouri, then I have to say that they have to figure out a way so this doesn't happen. I'm kind of concerned. I think I heard, and it probably wasn't you, about that the Missouri courts have already said that that the state could not redistrict. That's not how I understand the law, and it's not even the law some other places. Is that your understanding, that the state of Missouri cannot redistrict, and that the Missouri
that is my understanding. In the Constitution, it says you're supposed to do redistricting.
I'm sorry. You started talking before I finished, so I couldn't hear what you first said.
Oh, well, let me start over. That is my understanding, that it is unconstitutional to do redistricting when a census has not happened. It states in the Constitution in Missouri that we redistrict upon when a census happened, because when there's census, there's population data and there's numbers to know where people moved. Right now, there's lines being drawn with no data to know exactly who moved from what county or to not. So I think the alderman from the 9th was absolutely correct that it is illegal to do redistricting when there's no census that has happened.
So, but if the state would do a census, which you don't have to wait 10 years to do a census, and it proved, because sometimes great big things like this tornado happen and people move, and if they were to do a census and find out that the population was different, would that then open the state up to a redistricting? If they paid for their own census taking and did that, is it your opinion then we could do a redistricting?
I mean, right now we're talking about if a census was done. We know that it wasn't done. And the Constitution say every 10 years when a census is done is to do redistricting.
I would beg to differ a little bit, but okay, I'm asking your opinion. Okay. And so the next thing I want to talk about is this initiative petition reform, which we have been able to very successfully, when we felt like that people did not adhere to the values of Missouri, we in the state of Missouri have been able to go to initiative petition and get some of the things that are much more, I would say, liberal than maybe the conservative people that run the state. We've been able to do things like family leave, wages, all kind of things, medical health. And so the special session that's going on now, or did they already, I didn't follow, did they already pass it out, and is it at the governor's desk that that also is on the table?
Yeah, so it's not a special session, it's an extraordinary session, and it passed the House, and it's currently being debated right now in the Senate.
And so I'm not familiar. What is the difference of an extraordinary session and a special session?
The
Is that
governor,
an actual term, and that's what you're calling it?
the governor called this session compared to when the body called. If the body calls it, it's a special session. If the governor calls a session, it's an extraordinary session, which is the second one that the governor has called. The first one was around money for KC and tornado funds for St. Louis. That's why the resolution says second extraordinary session.
And so the first one, what they did, the money for KC, was that also where they put in about paying for the stadiums too, or was that in something different?
I didn't hear you say that again.
So the first one that they called extraordinary, was it also where they added the money for the Arrowhead? Well, not Arrowhead, but moving one of the stadiums downtown. Was that part of that whole deal? Besides the tornado, or was that something different?
No, that was right. It was Arrowhead to give them a break so that they can stay here and rebuild in Kansas City.
And so Arrowhead actually is both, those are the ones outside. Isn't one of, well, never mind about that. Anyway, so so we haven't passed that one. That is the one that is in the Senate. And
No,
also
that passed.
It passed from, I thought you said from the House.
The first one with the Arrowhead and the 100,000.
No, I'm sorry. I went past that because that's off the topic. We have not passed the redistricting bill, or have we?
No, we didn't, but the House Republicans passed the redistricting and the initiative petition process, and now it is being debated as we speak right now on the Senate floor.
Okay. Now, when you say it's being debated, did I hear something about a filibuster?
I said they're filibustering at the moment, yes.
Okay, and that would be the Democratic senators?
Yes.
Okay, and do you know how long that filibuster has been going on?
Nope. I was here. I just see that they are filibustering, but I don't know how long.
Okay, and so I want to ask a little bit about this ballot measure that requires in all 8 congressional districts to make it, before you could have an initiative, you would have, so if one congressional district by one vote says you cannot do a ballot measure, then one person could, one district could control the whole state, even if the majority of the state wants something. Is that correct?
In the old measure, you only had to have 6 out of 8, and I think it was about 10% of that congressional district. Now it is all 8, and the threshold is being raised from 10%, I want to say either 15 or 20%, if not higher.
And are you familiar that it didn't used to be even 6 out of 8? It was the majority, and they moved it, and this is the second time they're moving it. Are you familiar with that?
I know the initial petition process has been around the way in the current form for at least 30 some years. The last time that it was trying to be changed is when Democrats was actually in power, and folks want to change it, or the Democrats want to change it because citizens was kind of overriding whoever's in control. But the current form has been around for at least 30 plus years.
But they did change it. They added more, and they continue to add more. And after a while, we won't be able to do initiative at all. Okay. In your, let's see here, in your resolution, you said that the Republican leadership has employed rarely and and procedural maneuvers to rush this legislation throughout without adequate debate, deliberation, or public input. Can you tell me about that? What happened that you put this in this resolution?
Yes, they did not have quorum. Republican House members didn't have quorum when they opened up session and a closed session. So they were doing procedural moves and not abiding by what's in their rule book. When there was point of orders made, they didn't even acknowledge the House Democrats.
So they passed legislation without a quorum?
They opened up tech session, as the bills was being debated in committee to make sure that those bills can follow through the process without actually having a quorum.
But at the end, when they took the vote, they actually had a quorum.
They had a quorum at the end as they rushed it through and PQ'd Democratic members. Yes.
So I will say to you again, I wish you guys would learn a lesson from this. That goes both ways. And I talk about this, and you don't want to hear it. But when I was the chair of rules, when people wouldn't let the board bills about Proposition D, R, or whatever, I'm the only person, even though I disagreed with them, that let them have hearings, because I do believe that there's a place for people to disagree and be able to have hearings and things like that. And when we get a board that does the same thing, it's very hard for us to criticize anybody when we're doing the same things. I thank you for bringing this, because I will be bringing forth about the Board of Aldermen and all the things that we have done and the rules and the things that we have done that are just horrible. And we don't hear anybody from the state of Missouri criticizing us or coming down here to pass resolutions, but maybe they will. So we have to be careful. To me, you have to be careful about what you do, and then you get up and criticize somebody else. I have no further questions for you. I am, with much regret, going to support this, not because of the people who are passing it, because many of them are, to me, horrific hypocrites and have gall. But I absolutely do not support the redistricting that's going on in Kansas City, or the push to keep people from being able to make change from within the state of Missouri rather than through the legislative body. So I have to support it, but I say people who introduced this have a lot of gall and nerve, and they're hypocrites. I have nothing else to say.
Any further discussion? Alderwoman from the 7th.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. I just wanted to thank the aldermen for bringing this forward. I absolutely that what's happening right now is just very undemocratic, and it's definitely challenging the will of voters. So I just wanted to thank you for bringing this forward.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, Alderman from the 14th, you are recognized to close.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. I do want to thank all my colleagues who co-sponsored this resolution and who have went up to Jeff City, and appreciate the dialogue from myself and the Alderwoman from the 12th. I look forward to her bringing any future resolutions. We hear it a lot, but it never happened, so I finally look forward to that day. But I want to get back to the importance of this actual resolution that is, I think, sending a message to Jefferson City that, as the Alderwoman from the 8th said, we will not stand for this, and we will stand as city leaders to make sure that we send a strong message as we continue to fight for fair maps, as we continue to fight on the congressional level for fair maps, as well as to protect democracy for the people of Missouri. So again, thank you to all my colleagues who co-sponsored and the wonderful conversation that I had around this resolution. And with that, I would move to adopt Resolution 101.
It's been moved by the Alderman from the 14th, seconded by the Alderwoman from the 7th. We adopt Resolution 101. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Second reading resolutions, committee reports, and adoptions.
We have none.
Miscellaneous and unfinished business.
We have none.
You can dispense with line items 23 through 25. Announcements.
Friday, September 19th, 2025, full board meeting in the chambers at 10 a.m. That's the extent of the announcement.
Any further announcements? Alderwoman from the 1st.
Thank you so much, Madam President, members of the board. I just want to make sure that we have made other birthday announcements today. Alderman Bodie, Spencer, yesterday were their birthdays. Happy birthday to both of them. Thank you for being here and all you do. We don't have to sing.
Alderwoman from the 10th.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. I have two events going on just tonight alone, but you know there are so many others that I like to elevate. So please, I said a couple of times here and there to make sure you join me and our 10th Ward Legislative Assistant after the meeting on Facebook Live to get the rest of them. But I do want to uplift here too in Forest Park in the 10th Ward tonight. One tonight, which is Shakespeare in the Park at St. Louis Art Museum, which is always a great family fun, family-friendly event. Come out, bring your food. Might be other food trucks and things there. But Shakespeare in the Park, you know, they move around the city, and tonight is the night that they'll be in Forest Park. And then on Monday, Great Rivers Greenway is having the Great Gathering. A big community food table will be set up around the Missouri History Museum to celebrate the work that they have and will continue to do. Great Rivers Greenway is an amazing organization, and the access that they create is immeasurable. And so again, the Great Gathering is a community meal. You can come show up anytime between the hours, I think, of 4:30 and 7:30 and buy your food there or bring your food, sit and have dinner in community. Thank you.
Alderman from the 9th.
Thank you. I would just like to remind everybody of the customer assistance program for the Water Division. There has been some news recently that the moratorium on water shutoffs has been lifted, and so if you're behind on your bill and you are struggling to catch up, there is assistance available for you. You can get a $500 one-time $500 credit on your bill, and to learn more about that and apply, you can go to stlwater.com. This is being run in coordination with the Water Division and the Collector of Revenue's office. Really want to thank both of those offices for what they're doing to try to help people get back into compliance and make sure that everyone can have that great water that our city has. So reminder just to go and check that out if you need it. It's the Customer Assistance Program, and you can go to stlwater.com to apply.
Alderwoman from the 7th.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. I wanted to announce that the 7th Ward has our 8th Town Hall coming up on September 24th at the 5-Star Center at 2832 Arsenal. Our topic this month will be infrastructure, so we will be having the city's new Director of Operations, Ben Johnson, joining us. We will have Director Patel joining us from the Water Department, and we will also have Bess McCoy from MSD joining us. The town hall will begin at 6, but from 5 p.m. to 6 p.m., we'll have our resource fair. We are going to go beyond, make it a full hour. We've done 30 minutes historically, but last time we were doing assistance well into the town hall. And this time, if you have a utility bill, if it's water, if it's Ameren, if it's Spire, if it is any utility, MSD, water, all of those organizations will be on site able to assist you for assistance if you need it. If you need more information about eligibility for assistance or what documents you should need, feel free to shoot me an email, but also we will put that information with the social media posts and folks will be there. So again, that will be September 24th with the resource fair from 5 to 6 p.m. in the town hall itself from 6 to 7:30 p.m. If you don't need any assistance, feel free to join us at 6. We'll have food and refreshments and childcare as usual. And if you don't need anything, then please do consider bringing something for folks who have been impacted by the tornado. I know that we have a lot of residents that have been actively volunteering. And so in addition to our resource fair hour, we'll be collecting goods that can be donated to residents that have been impacted by the tornado. Thank you.
Any further announcements? Alderwoman from the 10th.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. During our meeting, forgot to announce that I did receive a message. Someone that worked down here with many of us prior to this, Dr. Jerome Hollins, lost his mother. So I would like for us to not only have a moment of silence, but because of the impact he had down here, continues to have in community, Can we please lift Gerard Hollins, his family, up in prayer and offer our condolences on the loss of his beloved mother?
If we could please stand and bow our heads for a moment of silence.
Thank you.
Any further announcements? Any further announcements? Alderman from the 5th.
I just want to remind folks that if anybody would like a photograph with Carissa before she leaves here today, when we're done, please gather on the side of the dais. Great,
thank you. Any further announcements? I do have one announcement that was just shared with me for anybody who has been following the machinists who are on strike against Boeing. They rejected their contract this morning in 57 to 43%. So still continue to send your solidarity to those workers who are on strike. Also want to make sure that we recognize Haley Day. She is an intern that is in our office at the moment, so you may see her around. Then also make sure that we send another warm welcome to Cheryl Campbell, April Rivera, and Daryl on his new position, even though, we love that you've moved to a new place, although I know some of us are sad. But just make sure that we welcome them. And then the last thing I wanted to lift up is that this week we did officially launch the Civic Clerk and Go Vocal platforms. And so you can, and I want to make sure that I really thank all of the staff at the board who has done a tremendous amount of technical assistance to learn how to operate all of this new technology. This does make it a lot easier to follow along with our meetings and our meeting agendas and when board bills are being heard. And so if you are watching at home, this was the first full board meeting you got to watch through that process. It makes it a lot easier to search through our meetings to find the topics that you want to hear, and then the Go Vocal platform was the RAM settlement portal that has been rolled over to an ideas portal. And so I know a lot of us get tagged on social media all the time of, look at this cool idea in this city, look at this cool idea in this city, and then we try to find where we were tagged and we can't find it. So this is a great place for our community to putting those ideas, creating this brain trust for the Board of Aldermen so we can draw down those ideas. You can work directly with alder people and our staff to bring those things through fruition, to look at feasibility, to learn how our city processes work. So really want to thank all of our staff and my team who has spent a lot of time over the last year really working to do all the back end work to roll these out. So they're exciting and it should bring a new dose of modernization to the Board of Aldermen. So with that, Alderwoman from the 10th, you are recognized on the motion to excuse.
Thank you, Madam President. All members present this.
Alderwoman from the 10th, you are recognized on the motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Madam President. I move that we adjourn until Friday, September 19th, 2025 in the Board of Aldermen chambers at 10 a.m.
It's been moved from the Alderwoman from the 10th, seconded by the Alderman from the 14th, that we adjourn until Friday, September 19th, 2025 in the Board of Aldermen chambers at 10 a.m. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion carries. We are adjourned.